wait, are you my agent or my broker? And if you're my agent, then who's my broker? And what's the difference and why is this so confusing? All of these are fair questions, and in this video, I'll do my best to provide some context and answers, so stay tuned. My name is allen-rouman, and I'm a real estate agent in Palm Springs, California. First, a little history. Before the turn of the 20th century, the sale and purchase of real estate was about as regulated as general dentistry, and heaven help those who needed a tooth pulled or wanted to buy a house. If you've ever read Upton Sinclair's novel The Jungle, which was published in 1906, then you have some idea of the shenanigans that helped shape the sorts of consumer protections we all enjoy today. But to get from a completely deregulated industry to one governed by ethical standards and laws, two things happened. First, our trade group called the National Association of Realtors formed in 1908, and then in 1917, the state of California passed its first real estate laws. So at the crux of both movements was an effort to protect consumers from the financial high stakes of buying or selling real property. In order to do that, they focused on the individual at the heart of it, namely the real estate broker. He, and let's face it, it was all men in those days, had to be reined in. No longer was it acceptable for him to wheel and deal with impunity, so the National Association of Realtors said, if you want to be part of our organization, you must abide by this new set of ethical standards we've written. Now, I've included a link to them in the notes below. You can see what the full set looks like today. All right. In exchange for acting ethically and according to our professional standards, you may then use the title of Realtor and otherwise benefit from our association. That was the selling point for the National Association of Realtors. And I'll get to a couple of important benefits in just a moment. Meanwhile, the state laid down specific laws. Initially, they were broad and focused on the safe handling of earnest money, but over time, they've grown considerably. Now, throughout, they have focused on what a real estate broker can and cannot do. All right, set all of that aside for a moment and let's discuss how a small service business commonly starts. Someone acquires a trade or skill and then begins performing that service for others in exchange for compensation. Before common currency, they may have traded their services for goods, like trading housekeeping for food and lodging. But eventually money was developed and an economy was born. Now let's take a modern plumber as a good example. He learns his trade, say from a mentor or a school, and then eventually goes out on his own. At some point he realizes he can't grow beyond the number of hours he can work, so he brings on an assistant. Eventually that assistant learns the trade and begins servicing clients of his own or her own, only they don't want all of the trouble that a boss has in finding new customers, marketing, plumbing, answering phones, well, you know, so on and so forth. This young plumber decides instead to continue working for the boss. Okay, back to real estate. In the early days, brokers quickly realized that they too were limited by the number of hours in a day, and so they started bringing in people to assist them. Only now, there were laws dictating who may and may not act as a real estate broker. And since much of the state's concern around real estate brokers centers on the safeguarding of money changing hands, a solution that emerged satisfied both the brokers and the government. An additional licensee designation of real estate agent emerged. This is someone with many of the same responsibilities of a broker, but in exchange for working under a broker's name, is absolved from some of the laws that otherwise govern the duties of a broker. Now, full disclosure, this video is more of a practical guide, and I'm sidestepping the concept of agency for now. Just know that this isn't intended to be a legal treatise. Okay, so how does all of this play out in the real world? Well, you have the big brand real estate companies. Some of them are national chains, some of them are regional players, and others are smaller boutique operations. In California, each real estate office must have a named broker of record. This person is ultimately responsible to the state for the transactions of that office. And depending upon the size of the company, say in multi-office brands like some of those here in the Coachella Valley, there might be someone at each office that acts as a managing broker, and he or she often oversees the daily operation of that office. All agents have a managing broker or a broker of record under whom they operate. Let me say that again. A licensed broker may open an office and act independently to engage in the business of real estate, or they may go to work for a large national chain, or even a small brokerage chain. His or her office might be in a storefront or in their back bedroom. A licensed agent may only engage in the business of real estate under the watchful eye of a licensed broker. Now, there's a third category of licensee, but let's hold off on that for just a moment. This state-mandated operational structure explains why many of the forms we use to conduct real estate business are clear to identify the broker or brokerage and not the individual agents serving the clients. Only licensed brokers are allowed by the state to officially engage in real estate. Agents can talk about real estate, show property, market property, and all sorts of other things, including bringing the parties together in the form of a deal, but ultimately only brokers can broker. Love it or hate it, it's the system under which we operate, and frankly, it works pretty well. Now, I promise to circle back to two things. First, there is a third category for real estate licensee in the state of California, and it's called an associate broker. This is an individual who has completed all of the education to be a broker and has passed the exam to become a broker, but has chosen to do business under another broker's license. In other words, they act like an agent under a managing broker at a real estate company. Second, the thing I said I'd talk about is the National Association of Realtors. Membership in NAR and a local realtor association means everyone operates under an established set of norms and rules that go beyond the laws of any particular state. Deviate and you're kicked out. Getting kicked out handicaps you from being an effective agent, and there are very few agents who don't see the importance of being part of a realtor association. Separately, realtor associations facilitate broker and agent access to the multiple listing service, and without that tool, well, forget it. Now, I hope all of this sheds some light on the differences between agents and brokers. This video was longer than usual, and I'm glad you made it this far. If I've missed anything, or you have questions or comments, please leave them in the YouTube section below and I'll be sure to respond. If there's ever anything real estate oriented that I can do for you, please let me know. If I can't help you myself, I'll do my best to connect you with someone in my personal network across the US and Canada that can. Until next time, thanks for watching.